everyone, and welcome back to the Real Positive Girl podcast. My name is Sabrina. Happy Thursday to you all. I hope that you're having a fantastic day and that it's just great and that it's starting off well if it's just beginning, or if you're in the middle or towards the end of it, that it was pretty great. You're able to reflect back on it and know that you got crap done and it just feels great, and that you can put that one in the books as being one that actually felt productive and worthwhile. I mean, every day is worthwhile to be living, to be honest. We should just be grateful every day that we wake up with breath in our lungs and the ability to walk and or work or speak and see and smell and do everything and just be grateful. But however, if you are having a bad day, then it's okay. You don't have to feel stressed or guilty for having a bad day, especially if everyone around you is having a good day. Like, I totally get it. You don't need to diminish your feelings in any way. However, I encourage you to do the 5-minute reset, where you take 5 minutes to just reboot, come back to baseline, figure out what's going on, how you can just impart some peace and just calmness into yourself. And then, take some time to problem solve if you're able to figure out how to get past the problems and be able to solve that today or the next day, to be ready to go, to be able to take it on. And so you're not having that weight on your shoulders, and, figure out how to finish up the rest of the day with feeling at least neutral for it, and not the most positive person in the world. No, absolutely not. You don't have to be if you don't want to. Just as long as you feel neutral and you feel grateful and humble for what's going on with your life and the fact that you have the ability to do this, so that you're able to change your mind and move on with the rest of the day as best you can. So again, happy Thursday. Just a reminder that this week we were talking about creating SMART goals, creating SMART goals. And today we are talking about creating realistic goals. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. I feel like this is going to be an easy one to talk about, but the idea of things being realistic is pretty simple, at least to me, and I'm sure that you'll probably agree. You want to make sure your goals are realistic, because there is no reason to stress yourself out over a goal that is actually unrealistic, but you decide to push yourself far beyond your actual capacity, and pushing yourself too hard or too far will only cause you to sabotage your goal, and that's absolutely not what you want. You want to be able to pick a very realistic goal that, just it makes sense for who you are and what season of life you're in. Don't go chasing goals that maybe are, I don't want to necessarily say that you're too old for it or it's just far gone, but I feel like there are certain goals that maybe you're just, you might be far beyond those goals. I would say you can do anything at any age. Age is just a number. I feel like it just depends on what age you are and what you're trying to do, right? So, but I would just make sure that it aligns with whatever season of life that you're in. You don't want to try to jump ahead too far in your life and become too overly ambitious to try things that you would like to accomplish now just because you want to get a jump start, when really you're just not in the proper season of life to be doing that. So it's something to really think about. Along with setting realistic goals, make sure you aren't setting too many goals at once, or you will end up overwhelmed for sure. So, that's again comes back to not being overly ambitious, really thinking through okay, is this goal right now the most important one? Do I honestly feel like I have the skills to multitask and be able to do 2 goals right now as opposed to 1, or even okay, should I do 2 or 3? I guess it depends. I also believe it depends on the scope of what is necessary for you to do to, get through every milestone, every checkpoint of the goal, and to actually accomplish the goal in the end. So it's honestly going to be a personal choice of how many goals you do at once. If you're having a really hard time with this, I encourage you to seek out help, whether it's a really close friend, family member, a partner, maybe you want to go see a coach, a counselor, a mentor, just to talk it out with someone. Tell them your plan. Please make sure you have a plan. Your goal is definitely going to be unrealistic if you don't have a plan for how your goal is going to roll out, and if you haven't already decided what those milestones are. But yeah, you just want to make sure that you don't take on too many things at once, because if you're not just naturally or grown to adapt to the skill of being able to multitask, it's going to be really difficult on you, and it's going to be like a huge wake up call of like, oh my gosh, this might be just a little too much. So I just encourage you to really think it through. Ask yourself, okay, do I have too many things going at once? Is this absolutely necessary to do right now? Do I need to swap it out with something else that's way less important in my life right now? Those are definitely questions you have to ask yourself. You will also want to ask yourself if this goal aligns with the rest of your goals and if this feels right to commit to. So, I feel like it can be tough. It can be tough, especially if it's something that you really, really want to do. Like, let's say that, a really cool internship comes up, but you're currently in school and you don't have that much school left. Like, you're in college or whatever it is, and you just need to, or maybe you're at the end of high school and you just you have this really cool opportunity come up, but that it requires you to jump out of school early, and make that decision. Like, you got to really figure out if the goal and if maybe your goal was to get that internship sometime, and it's come up earlier than you anticipated, and so does taking that internship or whatever, that opportunity, align with the rest of your goals in your life? Like, is it more important for you to finish school and then just try again for that opportunity, or will you be able to have the ability and the money and the time to be able to come back and finish school? Is it going to disrupt anything? Is it going to cause you to have to do more work in the end because you decided to leave kind of like in the midst of things as opposed to waiting till an actual breaking point? Like, those are definitely questions that you have to ask yourself. You have to make sure that it's going to align with everything else that's going on with your life. Even more important, that if you are sharing your life with someone else, if you have a partner, you have kids, you want to make sure that your goals align with their goals as well. I know that everyone can have separate goals. Like my husband and I, we definitely have separate goals, but we definitely have goals that align with each other. And it's important that if you're going to decide to tackle a really huge goal that's going to be life-changing and could potentially, affect them in some way, you want to make sure that your goals align with them as well. It's the respectable thing to do. If it's a smaller thing that's not going to affect them at all, then I understand with not necessarily checking with them, although I think that you kind of should check with them with most things. But someday we'll talk about relationships, and then we'll break down my personal opinions based on research and time. But so it's just something you have to consider. Like, does the goal that you're going after actually align with the other goals in your life, and does it feel right? Does it actually feel right in your heart and your mind and your spirit? You take the time to pray for it, really think it through, make a plan for it, see if it actually fits into your life. You will want to make sure it's a goal you actually want to pursue, and the way to really know the answer to that question yourself is ask why you are wanting to go after this goal. So it's another question. I know that it seems pretty common for me to encourage you to ask yourself questions, but honestly, this is a part of self-awareness, and self-awareness is like the key to so many things in your entire life. But let me not go off on a tangent about that. But yeah, you want to ask yourself, like, why are you going after this goal? Is it actually something that you really want to do? And then you should actually pull out a pen and paper or the notes app on your phone or whatever it may be, or voice notes, and just actually be like, why do I want to do this? So why do I want to do this internship? Well, is it going to get you into the industry that you've always been dreaming of? Is it going to give you really good experience? Are you going to meet the right kind of people to make relationships with? Is it going to give you an opportunity to have a leg up to be able to actually get a paid job, or is it a paid internship that pays well and you don't currently have a job right now, and do you feel like the timing right now is the best timing as opposed to waiting till later because other circumstances in your life? You really got to know why, and that will really help you to understand whether this is actually a goal that you actually want to pursue, not just something that's random, that's come along in your mind that may not actually be super important to you. Another question to ask yourself to know whether or not this goal is realistic for you is to ask yourself if it's worth going through all the effort and trouble for whatever the end result is. So, if your goal is to get the internship, or get through it, or whatever the goal may be, is it worth any sort of trouble or super big efforts that you may have to make? Of course, if it's going to, if you feel like it's going to be easy breezy to you, then, that's not even anything you have to consider. But if there's going to be trouble along the way, you have to deal with difficult people. You're going to have to like move. You won't have as much money during the time. There'll just be other sacrifices that you'll have to make that will actually be difficult on you. Those are definitely some other things to consider, whether it's realistic for you or not. But I do want to caution you that in asking yourself these questions, just make sure that the answers that you give yourself are not based on fear, but based on truly what you want, what you desire, what you're actually ready for. Because I know that sometimes fear can disguise itself as something else, as it can easily disguise itself as your true feelings. So just make sure that you're not operating in fear. You don't ever want to be operating in fear. You want to make sure that you feel good about whatever feelings you have, whatever decisions you're going to make. So just make sure that it's not the fear that's lingering and making you not want to do it. That's definitely not what I'm here to tell you. I'm not here to like scare you away from, going after a goal or attempting anything. No, I just want to make sure that you ask yourself all the right questions and then make sure that fear isn't getting in your way. The last important thought is to decide whether or not pursuing this goal will prevent you from going after anything else that is important to you. So, in regards to the example with the internship, like I said, if you go after that goal of getting that internship or getting through the internship because it's going to be tough, like, will that get in the way of you finishing school? I mean, it will. And is that okay? Is finishing school actually really important to you? Will finishing school actually give you a leg up, further down the road that you might have to wait a little bit longer, but it'll be more money, more opportunity, more time to really decide what you really want to do. It's just important. You got to really know, if there's anything else that you could be doing. And that's really hard. It's really hard to ask yourself this question, especially if you do want to just live in the moment. And I don't have anything against that. And there's definitely been times where I've just jumped the gun and made decisions, and I probably should have taken a little bit more time to think it through, but it just felt right in the moment. And I definitely learned a lot from those situations. I believe we've all been through those. But you definitely want to try to take as much time as you can muster to really think it through and decide whether or not it's going to get in the way of another goal, and whether you need to rearrange the list that you might have in your mind, the priority list, and find out which one's more important, or whether you need to do them in a certain order depending upon skills that you need to learn, or people that you need, or money, or time, or ability, So there's definitely some things to keep in mind. Just make sure the goal is meaningful to you and something you actually want to do, not something someone else wants you to do. It will be very easy to fall off the wagon if you aren't truly committed to it. So I definitely wanted to end on that note, making sure that whatever it is, it doesn't, whatever your goal is, those are your goals. You should be proud of those goals despite whether or not anyone supports you or not. I do really want to make sure I add that in, because not everyone's going to support you. Maybe no one will support you, or, and support can be seen a different way. If you want people to be cheering you on and no one is, yeah, that's a bummer. But if people in your life are not necessarily saying anything negative, they're just okay, yeah, go do what you're going to do, but they're not big cheerleaders like you imagined, yeah, that's a bummer. But at least they're not talking down about you. At least they're not saying oh my gosh, you shouldn't do this, because there's definitely people out in the world, and I've experienced this, where people are oh my gosh, why are you doing that? You're not qualified to do that. You don't even know what you're doing. Or they have all these things of what's going to happen to you based upon Joe Schmo down the street and them doing the same thing or something similar. You know what I mean? So you have to be very, for sure, you have to be very solid in the goals that you want to go after, the dreams that you want to conquer. And it doesn't matter what other people think. Also, make sure that the goal that you're going after is something that you actually want. It's like the age-old issue of, the kid goes to school to become a doctor or a dentist or whatever because their parents were that, or their parents told them to go to school for accounting because they'll get paid really well and they'll have a solid career and be able to provide for their family and maybe for their parents once they get older and they have to maybe assist them, those kind of things. And it can be really hard to tell your parents or your significant other or whomever that it's about what you want and not about what they want. And I know that when you're younger and you're making these decisions, it can be much harder to tell people that have some sort of authority over you that no, I don't want to do that. And especially if they're able to pull the strings of like paying for your lifestyle and for your schooling, I know it can be really tough. And it might take some time for you to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to survive. But in the end, you need to choose what is best for you. And you're only going to be driven and want to actually do justice to those goals and actually accomplish them and smash them if you actually care about them and they're actually meaningful to you. So just something to consider. But I'm going to end it there. So thank you so much for listening to the Real Positive Girl podcast. Again, my name is Sabrina and happy Thursday. If you enjoyed this episode, which I really hope that you did, I encourage you to share it with someone else, anyone else, and also take some time to look at the description box. I have all the notes for the show as well as where to find me on Instagram and my email address if you want to send me any questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests, whatever it may be. But I hope that you have a great day. I really encourage you to come back and listen to the last episode for this week's topic of creating smart goals. But until next time, thank you so much for joining me and have a good one. Bye, guys.